There's a specific kind of silence that hits you when you're standing in a room full of people who have decided you don't matter. It's not quiet. The bass at the vertex was shaking the floorboards, but it's a social silence. It's the feeling of eyes sliding right over you, like you're part of the furniture. I was standing in the VIP section of the most exclusive rooftop in Manhattan, wearing a hoodie that cost more than most people's cars, holding a drink I didn't want, and realizing a painful truth. Money buys access, but it doesn't buy presence. My name is Julian. On paper, I'm a titan. I built the financial infrastructure that half the banks in Zurich use today. I hold patents that generate royalties while I sleep. I have $300 million in liquid assets. But here, in the flesh, under the strobe lights, I am 5'9" of nervous energy, soft features, and I have 3 moles on my neck that I've spent 20 years trying to hide behind my collar. "You're bouncing," Claire said. She didn't look up from her phone. She was the only person in the club wearing sneakers and looking comfortable. "I'm not bouncing," I lied. "You are. You look like you're waiting for the principal to call your name." "I'm just observing," I said, taking a sip of the watery scotch. "You're staring," Cheeky corrected, leaning over the table to shout over the DJ. "You're staring at Serena, again." I was. I couldn't help it. She was sitting 3 booths away, bathed in the glow of a dedicated ring light held by an assistant. Serena was the big one, 5 million followers, a face on billboards in Times Square, and a reputation for being as cold as deep space. She was laughing at something a guy in a tailored suit whispered to her, exposing her throat, looking like she owned the oxygen in the room. To Cheeky and Claire, she was just another toxic influencer, a woman who called her fans besties while charging them for the privilege of breathing her air. But to me, she was the test. She was the final barrier. If a guy like me, who spent his life being the awkward kid in the back of the class, could get a woman like that to look at him, it would mean I had finally arrived. "She's vapid, Julian," Cheeky said, shaking his head. "She's pretty but toxic. She'd chew you up and turn you into a cautionary tale." "I just want to see if I can do it," I muttered. "I want to see if I can exist in her world." "So go find out," Claire challenged, pointing with her drink. "Go over there. Introduce yourself. Tell her who you are." I hesitated. My heart was hammering a frantic rhythm against my ribs. I had negotiated deals with regulators. I had fired people twice my age. But walking 10 feet across a club floor felt like walking into a firing squad. I stood up. I smoothed down my hoodie. I walked toward the table. As I approached, the laughter at her table died down. The invisible wall went up. "Excuse me," I said. My voice cracked. Just a fracture, but in that silence it was humiliating. Serena looked up. It wasn't a look of disgust. Disgust would have been an emotion. It was a look of total indifference. She scanned me, the slouched posture, the nervous hands, the moles. She weighed my value in a split second and found it wanting. She didn't even blink. She just turned her head back to the guy in the suit and continued her sentence exactly where she left off. I hadn't just been rejected. I had been erased. I stood there for 3 seconds, an eternity, before turning around. I walked back to my booth, feeling the heat rise up my neck, burning the tips of my ears. "Denied?" Cheeky asked. "Invisible," I corrected. I sat down and looked at Claire. She was looking at me with that clinical, pitying expression that I hated more than anything. It was the look you give a dog with 3 legs. "I'm tired of this, Claire," I said, my voice low. "I'm tired of being the billionaire nobody sees." I reached into my pocket and pulled out my checkbook. I uncapped my pen and wrote a number that had 4 zeros. I slid it across the sticky table. "Julian, stop," she sighed. "You're drunk."
I'm desperate, I said. I want to hire you. To do what? Design you a house? To design me, I said. You're an architect, Claire. You understand structure. You understand how things look and how they stand up. I want you to rebuild me. Claire looked at the check. Then she looked at the desperate set of my jaw. You want to pay me 10 grand to teach me how to pick up a narcissist? I want to pay you to fix this, I said, gesturing to my entire self. The wardrobe, the hair, the way I stand. I don't know the rules of this game, Claire. I want you to teach them to me. The transformation began at 6 a.m. the next Monday. Claire showed up at my penthouse with a clipboard and a look of terrifying determination. First, she said, walking into my closet, we burn everything. She wasn't speaking metaphorically. We spent 3 hours filling trash bags with my hoodies, my ill-fitting jeans, and my comfortable sneakers. I watched my identity being bagged up and hauled away. You hide in your clothes, Claire said, tossing a limited edition gaming shirt into the pile. You dress to disappear. From now on, you dress to occupy space. The next stop was a high-end dermatology clinic on the Upper East Side. I lay on a white paper table while a doctor examined my neck. The moles, Claire said, standing over me like a general. He hates them. They make him self-conscious. Get rid of them. They're benign, the doctor said. They're bugs in the system, I said. Delete them. I felt the laser burn. It smelled like singed hair. I winced, but I didn't complain. Every sting was a step away from the old Julian. Next was the barber. Not a Supercuts, but a private studio in Soho, where the barber wore a 3-piece suit and offered me single malt scotch. He has a jawline, Claire instructed the barber. He's just buried it under insecurity and fluff. Find it. The barber went to work. When he spun the chair around an hour later, I didn't recognize the man in the mirror. My hair was shorter, styled with precision to add height. The stubble was gone, replaced by a sharp, deliberate grooming that highlighted the bone structure of my face. I looked angular. I looked like I had edges. Better, Claire said, nodding. Now the armor. We went to a bespoke tailor. Claire didn't let me pick a single fabric. She chose charcoal grays, midnight blues, fabrics that absorbed light and commanded gravity. She forced me to stand straight while the old Italian tailor measured my inseam. Shoulders back, she commanded. Stop collapsing into yourself. You're worth $300 million, Julian. Stand like it. By the end of the week, I was exhausted. My skin was raw, my feet hurt from the Italian leather boots, and my bank account was lighter by $50,000, on top of Claire's fee. I stood in my living room, wearing a navy suit that fit like a second skin. How do you feel? Claire asked. I looked at my reflection. I feel like an imposter. Good, Claire said. That means the disguise is working. Now comes the hard part. The hardware is easy, Claire said the next day. We were in her loft in Brooklyn. It was a messy, creative space filled with drafting tables and models of buildings. Anyone can buy a suit, but you still talk like you're apologizing for your existence. Phase 2 was the social. Claire treated conversation like a contact sport. She made me practice entering a room. I had to walk through her front door 20 times until I did it without looking at the floor. Eye contact, she yelled. When you speak to someone, you look them in the iris. You don't look at their nose, you don't look at their shoes. You look at their soul. It asserts dominance. It feels aggressive, I argued. It feels confident, she corrected. Serena is a predator. If you look away, you're prey. If you hold the gaze, you're a challenge. We spent days on scripts. Not pickup lines. Claire hated those. She taught me conversational hooks, how to answer a question with a question, how to be vague enough to be intriguing. She'll ask what you do, Claire said, pacing the room. If you say, I code crypto, she hears nerd. Instead, you say, I build digital architectures for the future economy. You frame it. You control the narrative. Then came the rehearsals.
These were the strangest nights. Claire would dress up. She would put on heels and lipstick, transforming herself from my best friend into a proxy for the women I was trying to attract. We would sit at her small kitchen table, pretending it was a Michelin star restaurant. Buying me a drink isn't enough, Claire said, channeling a haughty socialite character. Why should I talk to you? Because, I said, leaning back in the chair, mimicking the posture she taught me, I'm the only person in this room who isn't trying to take your photo. Claire paused. A smile flickered. Good, that was good. Arrogant but grounded. I have a good teacher. Don't break character, she snapped. The turning point came on a rainy Tuesday. We were practicing the closing moment, the goodbye, the transition from conversation to intimacy. You're walking me to my car, Claire narrated. The vibe is right. You want to kiss me, but you don't ask. Asking is weak. You create the moment. We stood by her balcony door. The rain was drumming against the glass. I stepped closer to her. I could smell her perfume, vanilla and sandalwood. It was a scent I'd known for 20 years, but suddenly it felt new. Leap of faith, Julian, she whispered. Read the signal. I looked at her eyes. She wasn't looking away. I reached out, my hand trembling slightly, and cupped her face. I tilted her chin up. This was the drill. This was the algorithm we had practiced. But when I leaned in and our lips met, the code broke. It wasn't a rehearsal kiss. It was electric. It was soft and terrifying and real. I felt a surge of something hot and heavy in my chest, a feeling I had never gotten from looking at Serena's Instagram. I felt seen. I pulled back, breathless. My hand was still on her cheek. Claire stared at me, her eyes wide, her pupils blown. She looked flustered, a rare look for her. Okay, she said, her voice dropping an octave. She cleared her throat and stepped back, breaking the contact. That was technically proficient. You passed the module. Claire, I started. You're ready, she interrupted, turning away to busy herself with some papers. You're ready for the field test. You're ready for Serena. I stood there, watching her back. I should have been happy. I had graduated. But as I looked at her, I felt a strange, hollow ache in my gut. I ignored it. I had paid $10,000 for a result, and I was going to get it. The target environment was Obsidian, a new ultra-lounge in the meatpacking district. Claire's intel confirmed that Serena would be there for a brand launch. I arrived alone. I was wearing the midnight blue suit. My hair was perfect. My skin was flawless. I walked past the line, slipped the doorman a $100 bill with a subtle handshake Claire had taught me, and walked in. I didn't look at the floor. I scanned the room. I saw her, Serena. She was in a booth, holding a glass of champagne, looking bored. I walked over. I didn't hesitate. I didn't wait for permission. You look like you'd rather be anywhere else, I said, sliding into the empty spot next to her. Serena turned, ready to scold me, but she stopped. She looked at the suit. She looked at the jawline. She looked at the eyes that refused to look away. Do I know you? She asked. No, I said, signaling the bartender without breaking eye contact. But you're about to. I used the scripts. I used the posture. I used the vague, intriguing answers. I work in future tech, I said when she asked what I did. I specialize in things people say are impossible. Serena smiled. It was a real smile. You're mysterious. I like mysterious. Everyone else here is so available. By the end of the night, I wasn't just sitting with her, I was leaving with her. As we walked out to her waiting limousine, the paparazzi bulbs flashed. For the first time in my life, I didn't flinch. I put my hand on the small of her back, guiding her. "Who is the mystery man with Serena?" I heard a photographer yell. I looked at the camera and smirked. I had done it. I had hacked the system. Dating Serena was like owning a very expensive, very high-maintenance sports car that you were never allowed to drive. You could only park it out front for the neighbors to see. For the first 2 weeks, I was on a high. I was the envy of every man in New York. I was on the Page 6 gossip column. Tech tycoon Julian Vance spotted with the Queen of New York. But the glitches started to appear in the 3rd week. We were at dinner at Le Cuckoo. It was a romantic, candlelit table. I wanted to talk to her. I wanted to tell her about the new AI update I was struggling with. "Babe, wait," she said, holding up a hand. She was arranging the silverware. She stood up to get a better angle of her lobster thermidor. Flash, flash, flash. "Got it," she said, sitting back down and immediately typing on her phone. "Serena," I said, "I was thinking about—" "Shh, I'm captioning," she murmured. "Should I use the sparkles emoji or the fire emoji? The fire is better for engagement, but the sparkles are more on brand." She didn't look at me for 10 minutes. When she finally put the phone down, she looked at me and smiled. "You look good tonight, babe. We should take a selfie. My engagement is up 12% since we started dating. You're really good for my algorithm." I felt a coldness spread through my chest. Is that what I am? Content? She laughed, touching my hand. "Don't be silly. You're my boyfriend. And you're rich. And you're hot. It's the total package. Just tilt your head to the left. The light hits your jawline better." I was an accessory. I was a prop. I went to meet Claire the next day for a debrief. I expected her to be thrilled. "I did it," I said, sitting in her office. "She posted a photo of us. It has 1 million likes." Claire didn't smile. She looked tired. "That's great, Julian. Congratulations. You got the prize." "Why do you sound like that?" "Like what?" "Like you're disappointed." Claire stood up, walking to the window. "I'm not disappointed. I'm just done. The contract is fulfilled, right? You got the girl. You don't need the coach anymore." "Claire, we're friends." "Are we?" She turned, her eyes flashing with sudden anger. "Because for the last month, I've been building a Frankenstein monster to please a woman who thinks deep conversation is asking what filter to use. You're not Julian anymore. You're just a suit." "I'm the man you made me," I shouted. "I made you confident," she shouted back. "I didn't tell you to sell your soul to a shallow Instagram bot." The silence hung between us. It was heavy and suffocating. "I have to go," she said quietly. "I have real work to do. Go be with your queen." She walked out, and for the first time since I made my millions, I felt poor. The climax happened at the Met Gala. Serena had insisted we go. It was the biggest night of the year. I was wearing a $30,000 tuxedo. Serena was wearing a dress made of literal gold chains. She looked spectacular. But as we walked the red carpet, I felt sick. Every flash of the camera felt like an interrogation light. "Smile, babe," she hissed through her teeth. We got inside. It was a sea of egos. Serena immediately abandoned me to go talk to a producer. I stood by the bar, nursing a martini. I pulled out my phone. I opened my gallery. I scrolled past the hundreds of photos of Serena. I stopped at a video. It was from one of the rehearsal nights with Claire. We were laughing.
I was wearing my old hoodie. She was teasing me about my bad posture. I looked happy. I looked real. "Julian!" Serena appeared, grabbing my arm. She looked frantic. "I need you to come with me. Someone just tweeted that we looked distant on the carpet. We need to do a PDA moment right now in front of the Vogue photographer." She pulled me toward the center of the room. "Serena, stop," I said. "What? Don't be difficult. My brand reputation is at stake." "Your brand," I said. "Not us. Your brand." "It's the same thing," she snapped. "Look, I'm announcing tonight that we're moving in together. It's going to break the internet. The tech king and the queen. It's gold, Julian." She was going to trap me. She was going to lock me into this digital prison forever. "I can't do this," I said. "Can't do what?" "This. Us. You." I pulled my arm away. The room seemed to stop. "I'm not a prop, Serena, and I'm not content." "You're embarrassing me," she hissed, her eyes darting around to see who was watching. "You're lucky to be with me. Do you know how many guys want this spot? You were a nobody until I let you in." "I was a billionaire," I said calmly. "But you're right, I was a nobody, because I thought I needed you to be somebody." I looked at her, really looked at her. I didn't see a goddess anymore. I saw a scared, lonely woman living inside a phone screen. "I'm done," I said. I walked out. I left the gala. I left the cameras. I walked out onto Fifth Avenue in my tuxedo. I loosened my tie. I took a deep breath of the dirty city air. I hailed a cab. "Where to?" the driver asked. "Brooklyn," I said. I didn't call. I just showed up at Claire's loft. It was 2 a.m. I knocked on the heavy metal door. My knuckles hurt. Claire opened it. She was wearing oversized pajamas and messy hair. She looked beautiful. She looked at the tuxedo. She looked at my face. "You're supposed to be at the gala," she said. I resigned, I said. "From the gala?" "From the role. I fired the actor." I walked inside. The loft was quiet. "Serena is going to destroy you online," she said. "She's going to tell her 5 million besties that you're toxic." "Let her," I said. "I can buy the platform she posts on if I have to." Claire cracked a smile. "There's the arrogance." "No," I said, stepping closer. "That's not arrogance. That's just math." I took a breath. I dropped the dominance posture. I slumped my shoulders. I let myself look small. I let myself be Julian. "I messed up, Claire. I paid $10,000 to learn how to be a man, but I was learning from the wrong curriculum. I thought I needed to be someone else to be loved. But the whole time I was rehearsing with you. I wasn't acting." Claire looked at me. Her eyes were searching mine. "You loved the idea of her, Julian." "I loved the idea of not being invisible," I corrected, "but she never saw me. Even when we were together, she never looked at me. Not the way you do." I reached into my pocket. I pulled out the checkbook. I wrote a check for another $10,000. "What is this?" she asked. "A refund," I said. "The training failed. I didn't get the girl." Claire looked at the check. Then she looked at me. She took the check and ripped it in half. "You're an idiot," she said. Her voice was shaking. "I know, I'm a glitch." "Yeah," she whispered, "but you're my glitch." I didn't use a script. I didn't check for eye contact dominance. I just stepped forward and kissed her. It wasn't a rehearsal. It was the source code. It was the feeling of coming home after a long, exhausting trip to a foreign country. We broke apart. Claire rested her forehead against mine. "You know," she said softly, "I liked the old hoodies." "We can go shopping tomorrow," I said. "I think I have some store credit." Serena did try to spin it. She posted a long video claiming she dumped me because I was emotionally unavailable and obsessed with my work. It got 3 million likes. I didn't care. A week later, Serena actually showed up at Claire's office. I wasn't there, but Claire told me about it. Serena looked tired. She wasn't filming. "He really loves you, doesn't he?" Serena had asked. "Yeah, he does." "It must be nice," Serena said, looking at her phone, which, for once, was dark, "to have something that isn't content." She left, back to her world of ring lights and filters. I'm still rich. I'm still the titan of crypto. But now when I walk into a room, I don't care who is looking at me. I only care about the woman holding my hand. I kept the haircut, but I threw away the scripts. It turns out the only algorithm for love is honesty, and that comes free of charge.